Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Grace and Glam, where we'll be blending beauty and faith. I'm Grace, and as we go through today's makeup routine, we'll be diving into God's Word, discovering how His truth can transform us from the inside out. Whether you're here for beauty tips or a little bit of Bible encouragement, I'm glad you're joining me. Let's grow in grace, apply a little glam, and start this journey together. So, I have been reading one chapter of the Bible a day with a group of women where we meet virtually. We discuss our findings from each chapter. We also have Bible study Zooms throughout different times and days throughout the week, and we discuss what we've been reading. We started the book of Genesis, which is really nice because when you get into what the origins of life is, it's all in here. And we've gotten up to Genesis chapter 21 today. So, I'm not sure if you know anything about the Bible. If you don't, Genesis, like I mentioned, starts with creation, how God made everything. Adam and Eve fell, meaning they disobeyed God and they sinned. So they had to face the consequences of that, which meant being removed from the garden that God created for them, which was perfection and everything in its purest form. And when they fell, when they sinned, they realized that God's covering over them was no longer over them, although He still provided covering for them, if that makes sense. He still provided a sacrifice to cover their shame, their nakedness, which would ultimately symbolize when Jesus would come and save us. So Adam and Eve fall, they believe the serpent's lies and disobey God. They blamed each other, which ultimately was blaming God. Then their sons, Cain and Abel. Cain murdered Abel out of jealousy and pride, I believe. But God still had a protection over Cain that no one could murder him, or they would have to face God's vengeance. Then Adam and his wife Eve still continued to procreate and be fruitful and multiply. Through the generations, people just became exceedingly wicked, and God looked and saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth. That's in chapter 6. And the Lord was sorry that He had made men on the earth, and He was grieved in His heart. But He found favor, found grace. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So if you know anything or have heard anything about the story of the flood and Noah's ark, God saw him and saw that he tried, to live an upright life in God's eyes. And He instructed him to build an ark. Now, these people had never seen rain before, and Noah had to be obedient to what God said was going to happen. He told him, I'm going to destroy the earth with a flood because everything's just too wicked, but I will save you and your families. And Noah had 3 sons. So He saved Noah, his wife, and then the 3 sons and their wives. And that's how everything continued from there as far as the descendants and the earth continuing to be repopulated. Then with those people, it's almost like we as a people continue to just go back to the things that just are not good for us, or we just try to be selfish in so many ways, because then they wanted to build a tower that led up to heaven just to make a name for themselves, not even to try to meet God and see like, hey, we're missing out. I want to get to heaven. It was just to make a name for themselves, which is a little bit selfish. So when that was happening, God saw that it was something that they were going to continue to be persistent in. So He confused their languages. That's when languages started. I am Hispanic. I speak Spanish and English. My husband's Haitian. He speaks Creole and English, but he also speaks Spanish. I'm learning Creole. And it's challenging to learn a new language when you're already older and everything, but when you're a child, it is easier, so you can absorb. So I can only imagine what these people went through when all of a sudden they're speaking to their friend and they're like not even speaking the same language. After that, Abram came from those descendants, and God made a promise to Abram that he would have great generations, a great nation. Now, this promise was made to Abram, but Abram kind of continued to just be impatient, maybe, if you could say. And he started doing things his own way. He even listened to his wife when his wife said, take my servant and have a son with her, because that's most likely where our family will come from. And even though that wasn't God's plan, God still blessed that child and said, I have made a promise with you, but I'm still going to bless this child that you had that was outside of my plan for you. Which kind of like as we're going through these chapters so far, it just shows me that God is faithful to his promises just because he is who he is and not because of anything we do. We can mess up, and we do mess up so many times. But God is faithful to his word because he is the word. He is truth. During that time with Adam waiting for the promise to be fulfilled, he had a nephew that I believe he was very close with, and they had to part ways, and he let his nephew Lot choose where he was going to settle. He settled closer to the land of Sodom. If you know anything about Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom was a very vile place, very sinful, very wicked. I'm not sure if it was like that immediately, but that's what it became, where one time God was visiting Abraham to talk to him about the promise he made to him, and he um, mentioned that he was going to destroy that nation. And here I am. I realize that it's supposed to be makeup and Bible, but let me get started with this. I just wanted to kind of give a recap of where we've been so far. And so, yes, God told Abraham that he was going to destroy this place. But because he knew his nephew Lot lived there, he was pleading, like, it's not in your character to destroy the righteous and the wicked. So will you destroy it if there are 50 righteous people there? And he said, no, I won't destroy it if there's 50. Well, what about 40? What about 30? He finally got down to 10, and he said, no, I won't destroy it if I find 10 people. Sadly, God's angels went to visit Sodom, and in that circumstance, in that situation, the people of Sodom surrounded Lot's house and were demanding those angels come out so that they could be violated, like do some things to them, which kind of just showed the state of those people. They were very wicked. And Lot pleaded, he said, no, don't take them. I'll send my daughters out. You can have your way with them. What father does that? Oh my gosh. And they were like, no, 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 we want these angels. Now, I guess maybe Lot didn't realize that these angels could have handled themselves and everybody else around them. And that's what they did. They like protected Lot, and they blinded the men so that they couldn't attack Lot and come in and all of that stuff. But they also told Lot, you have to leave. Tell your sons-in-law, tell your family that it's time to go because we're going to destroy the city. Now, Lot was hesitant. I don't know if it was because Lot was comfortable where he was or just wasn't sure, but they had to physically remove Lot, his wife, his daughters, because the son-in-laws thought Lot was foolish and joking when he told them, like, hey, God's going to destroy this place. They physically removed him. They said, go to this place where you'll be safe. Lot was like, well, I don't want to go there. I'm afraid. What if I just go to this other small town? And they were like, all right, we'll agree to that. But you have to leave, and it's not until you get there that we'll destroy the city. You cannot look back. Lot's wife looked back. Did she look back because she was compassionate towards the city and her friends and family that were there, maybe? Or was it that she just didn't want to leave? She was turned into a pillar of salt immediately because that was straight disobedience. When they get to the place that Lot said he would go to, even there he was afraid. Either way, he and his daughters hid in a cave. And Abraham, from the town he lived in, he could see that I guess the next morning, he saw that Sodom was up in smoke. But God did keep his promise to him by protecting Lot. The unfortunate part of this is that the daughters were like, now we don't have anyone to marry us and have children with us, so let us take and intoxicate our father and have children with him so that we can preserve our lineage. What daughter does that? Anyway, that is the end of Lot's story. Then Abraham is still waiting on God's promise. He's still kind of unsure of like, when is this going to happen? I'm 100 years old. My wife is 90. Like, who's going to have kids at this age? At my age, yeah, I'm nowhere near those ages, but I'm still just kind of like, if God were to make that promise to me, I would laugh. Abraham laughed, Sarah laughed. And ironically, but at the same time, in God's sense of humor, their promised son's name would be Isaac, which means laughter. And this is the chapter we're at today, chapter 21 of Genesis, where Isaac is born. I'm using red aspen skin tint in Meaningful. I did a color match along my jawline with a sample that I had, and I feel like this was the best match. One of the nice things about this is that it has nutrients in it that are good for the skin. So we're at the point where Isaac is born, and it seems like Sarah is full of joy. It says, God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. He also said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So it's almost like one of those, like, who would have thought this would have been my life? Like, if you would have told me, which the funny thing is, like, God did tell her. So those were verses 6 and 7 in chapter 21. The unfortunate part, though, is that when when Isaac was weaned, which I believe in Bible times might have been about 2 years old, maybe three, um, the other son, maybe I didn't say this. No, I did. Um, the son that Abraham had with Sarah's servant, which probably was about 13, 14 at this time, he started laughing, I guess, in mockery at Isaac. Sarah noticed that and she said, no, this son is not going to share an inheritance with my son. He needs to go. So this kind of made Abraham sad because he was a little close to Ishmael already. Like this was kind of the son he had already, and he didn't want to part with him, but he did get supplies ready for Ishmael and Hagar, his mom, to go away. And unfortunately, what happens is Hagar goes to a desert and she wanders away, and I believe at that point she is thinking that she's gonna die, but she didn't want to see her son die. And God, in all his all-seeing self, as he usually does, as he had seen her before, um, he saved her. Now, during the time of Abraham's impatience and just waiting, he had done some things that I guess, like I said, showed his lack of trust, maybe, where he had lied, like in different places he had gone to about who Sarah was. He would say that, oh, she's my sister, because he thought they would kill him and keep her or whatever. But in both those instances, the men that he did that to were like, why did you lie to us? Like, take your wife and go away. So it was just one of those things. Abraham, um, being just unsure, maybe, or maybe doubting. Excuse me. Either way, God demonstrated his faithfulness by providing the son that he told him. And it took, I believe, 25 years for that promise to be fulfilled, which only tells me, like, just wait on God's timing, trust him. God's timing is definitely not our timing. He'll do things at the perfect time. And we just have to trust him. Now my thing is, like, just trying to be considerate of Sarah and her patience through it all, or at least trying to be patient, is that she was only getting older, and women, in one of the chapters it does say that she was already past her childbearing years. This is, I probably put a little bit too much. This is a cheek stick. This is the blush cheek stick. So you apply it on the apples of your cheek, and then it can be blended in with a brush, a makeup sponge. I'm going to use one of my brushes, cheek brush. So I can only imagine that Sarah was just waiting and waiting, which kind of shared what her impatience led to, as far as, like, just take my servant because we'll have our children that way, which unfortunately wasn't God's way. How many times do we do that? That we just like, all right, God, I'm going to do it my way because I don't see where you're working and how you're going to work this out. And then we make a mess, and still God protects us and rescues us. I did not blend this properly. What am I doing? Um, So I think it's funny that Abraham and Sarah both laughed at God, and then their child was named Laughter. I think it would be a lifelong reminder of that. Um, but I believe that through the process, God was changing Abraham and Sarah and their attitude towards Him to trust Him more. Um, I think what my takeaway from this too is that no matter what your um, mistakes are in this life, whether you've made them already or have yet to make some, um, God's promises are sure. He will keep His promises because He is the promise maker and the promise keeper. And if you're not sure what the promises are in your life, ask God to reveal them to you. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. So there is, I'm using the Sculpt. It's a bronzer contour stick. And yes, it looks funny when it's first applied. But the blending is going to be what makes it blend. So we're blending. What questions or comments do you have? Is there anything that stuck out to you? Have you ever read Genesis before? Okay, so if you look at, oh boy, the lighting here is not great. Or maybe it's my not makeup, the, what's it called? The mirror that I'm not able to see what I'm. The key with makeup is blending. Just want it to blend. So one of the things I like about these Red Aspen products is that they actually have good for you ingredients. Like anti-aging properties, moisturizing. So I usually do the contour first, bronzing. What that does is it just helps define parts of your face that you want defined. You can narrow the appearance of certain parts, sculpt your face. Now, my thing with makeup is that I feel like it should enhance your features, not necessarily change your whole look. I usually use a brush, but for now I'm doing that. And did I? So one of the reasons I applied along the jawline is so that it defines the jaw and the contours of the cheek. And what that does is it makes it like conceal that double chin. Right now, the highlight. And this I would apply to pretty much the opposite areas. So highlighting. What's nice about these sticks is that they do have a creamy application, but like a powder finish. With highlighter, you pretty much want to apply it wherever you feel. Like if you're out in the sun. You want to give that sun-kissed look. And the final, maybe not final, but one of the other final products would be it's a loose setting powder, translucent setting powder. I'm just going to tap off any excess. So back to the Bible reading. I'm just going to brush out my eyebrows just to get off any makeup that might have settled onto them. Fill in any spots that need. Brush that to blend it again. Okay. Genesis continues. So for me, I like to read. I've been trying to get back to reading. And what I feel with Genesis is that there is lots of drama. It's like one of those, like it has romance, it has drama, it has suspense, it has adventure. And that's the Bible. It has a little bit of everything, but the most common thread among all of it is God's love for us. Okay, I'm going to keep this simple with the last step being mascara since we're wrapping up. And I just want to say that if you have not read the Bible before, not saying you got to read it cover to cover or anything like that, but I'm in the process of doing so. As I mentioned, I am part of a group of women who we read one chapter of the Bible of the day, one Bible chapter a day, which is probably the best way to read it because sometimes reading too much or not enough, it can leave you either feeling confused or like you're not getting the full thing, maybe hard to understand, hard to apply, and you're just not sure what you're reading. It's like a whole different language and you can't understand it. A few things I would recommend: just take it one bite at a time. You don't sit and have like a whole full course meal all at once. 4 course, whatever, however it's called. Like you don't have a whole meal and just ingest it all at once. You have to have one bite at a time. And when you do that, you'll get to know the character of God a little better each day. You'll get to understand yourself a little better each day, and your faith will grow each day. So, this is the final. I'll do my hair at another time, but I hope that you remember, if you've made any mistakes in your life, we all have, no one's perfect, that God is with you, God is for you. You can never mess up too much that God does not love you. I thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope you found some inspiration for both your beauty routine and for your walk with God. Remember, true beauty starts from within. God's word is your ultimate guide. And if you enjoyed today's message, feel free to like, subscribe, share with someone who you feel needs encouragement. And remember to stay blessed, stay beautiful, and until I see you next time, let's continue this faith journey together.